government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
Welcome. Glad you are with us. In just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Congressman Glenn Grothman live. Congressman Glenn Grothman, one of my favorite members of the U.S. House of Representatives. So spread the word. Now, before he joins us, what do you think, my friends, is the chances? What are the chances? What are the chances that there is a movie that is out as of September 26th? I mentioned this briefly on television the other night, but it bears repeating with a little more detail and to this audience as well. What are the odds that a movie would be out September 26th, that's when it came out, that is a movie about basically modern day revolutionaries? Think Weather Underground. Remember the Weather Underground of the 1960s and all their bombings? Well, there's a movie in the theaters out, folks. Do you think that's encouraging this? Now, I'm certainly not encouraging you to go see it. No. In fact, the opposite. But I would also just warn you about anyone you know that might be influenced by this. But more than that, giving you a warning that here we have more propaganda going into the minds of young people that are going, I think many of them, to think that this is a noble calling. After all, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, right? Kind of where we're at. The glorifying of violence, the glorifying of terrorism. Isn't that what's gone on now for 2 years as of yesterday? A solemn anniversary of the murder of 1,200 Jews, October 7, 2023. And many of those young people that are in the streets of America are seen by many millions in America as just practicing freedom of speech. They're freedom fighters. They're concerned with the oppressed, the downtrodden. They are trying to destroy the system of slavery, the capitalist system. They're fighting white supremacy, the bourgeoisie, the property owners. It's all being glorified, glamorized. We have a man running for Attorney General of Virginia saying horrific things about his opponents and eliminating their life and that of their children. And yet, I saw today a video where Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia said, well, you know, those were troubling remarks, but I've known him for 25 years, and those remarks don't really represent the totality of those 25 years, and so I'm going to keep my endorsement of him. I support him. Of course they do. And now we have a film going into the culture that glorifies not just Marxist revolutionaries, but people that are involved in violent communist revolutionaries, breaking illegal immigrants out of ICE detention centers. There's an article written by a staffer at an organization that reviews films. And the headline is, you really should be aware of Leonardo DiCaprio's One Battle After Another. That's the name of this movie. Should we say what it really is? A propaganda piece? One Battle After Another is an action movie about a white, violent communist revolutionary, played by Leo DiCaprio, who goes undercover with his baby girl after the black mother leaves them. And 16 years later, gets separated from her when she goes on the run from the evil, white, racist soldier who's come to kidnap her and kill her if a DNA test proves he's the girl's real father. Filled with strong, foul language, One Battle After Another is a senseless Marxist thriller that's supposed to take place in the present day that promotes violent, anti-American, anti-capitalist, revolutionary, open borders, and illegal immigration, and depicts, are you ready for this, folks? Depicts an underground white racist cabal as being Christian while showing his Hispanic Roman Catholic churches as favoring illegal immigration. The movie opens with a violent communist group calling itself the French 75 raiding a detention center for illegal aliens on the border. The goal is to release all the detainees and transport them north in a big truck. After freeing the illegals, the individual in the film and his comrades carry out a series of bombings against politicians' offices of politicians, a bank, and the power grid. The film goes on to talk about the violent revolutionary activist killing a bank guard in cold blood. Goes on to talk about Border Patrol and a secret cabal of white racist men calling themselves the Christmas Adventures Club. The Christmas Adventures Club. They're supposed to be white racist men, and their headquarters plays Christmas carols. In other words, folks, they're trying to portray Christians that are for borders, sovereignty, removing criminal illegal aliens out of the country as white Christians. Now, what is the source of all suffering and oppression, according to the Frankfurt School, who came here to America in 33? The source of all suffering and oppression is what? Christianity and capitalism. That's what they said. What did Karl Marx say? My object in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism. This film portrays as the problem white Christians. And the solution, apparently, is violence, bombing, terrorist attacks, cold-blooded murder, all in the name of being, I guess, freedom fighters. The article warning about this says that it is a senseless Marxist thriller. It is an abhorrent, humanist, communist worldview that's promoted. In fact, the movie incites violent Marxist revolution. It's anti-American, anti-capitalist. It promotes open borders and mass illegal immigration. Has a hateful attitude toward Christians in America. And the white characters are part of a racist cabal of white men surrounded by Christmas carols. The white racist group in this movie is a shallow Marxist caricature. With the recent horrific examples of Christian evangelists being attacked and assassinated, and attacks on ICE immigration officers while arresting illegal alien criminals, this movie is bound to add more fuel to the fire. America doesn't need a violent communist movie like this, right now or ever. That's how the article concludes. You think this is by chance? Isn't this interesting that they have time to put a movie into production, film it, and release it right now? Do any of you ever think or get the opinion or feeling that so much of what we see happening in our world is highly scripted? Someone, a dear friend of mine I've known for, I would say, close to 40 years now, called me and said that today. How much of this is scripted? And I said, well, let me give you an example. And I told him about this Marxist, anti-Christian, anti-capitalist, pro-terrorist, pro-domestic terrorist film in the theaters. I said, this might be part of the answer to your question. How much of this is scripted? Apparently a lot. Because what are the odds that you have a film that hits the theaters September 26th promoting this right when the country is going through what it's going through now? You know, there's a reason why we've spent a lot of time and effort over the years telling you about the various world views. There's a reason we spent a lot of time telling you about Marxism, communism, whatever you want to call it, the Islamic worldview, the red-green axis. There's a reason we've spent a lot of time and energy educating people on the weather underground, what they were all about, and how they actually ended up rising within education circles like Bill Ayers to write education curriculum in our schools. Folks, they've now had decades to brainwash our children. And you know what also is very scary? And I'm going to get into that tonight more on Brandon House Live. The number of young people that are mentally unstable. The number of young people that are suffering with serious psychosis. There's an article, a study, a peer-reviewed study put together by a few of my friends. One, a psychiatrist, Dr. Peter Breggin. My friend, Dr. Peter McCullough, who's a guest on my show frequently and spoken at my Worldview Weekend. And then my friend, Dr. James Thorpe, OBGYN. There's others that took part in this, but those three people I personally know. And they did a peer-reviewed study, and the title is Association Between COVID-19 Vaccination and Neuropsychiatric Conditions. I've been talking about this for a few years because one of the authors, Dr. Thorpe, revealed the number of people who have had these shots and boosters, how many of them suffer from psychosis, from fog, brain fog, the inability to think correctly, the inability to have cognitive understanding. For some, it goes worse to the point of becoming violent, suicidal. The lack of reason, logic, and context. And I use that phrase a lot over the years. Reason, logic, context. What do I mean by that? Reason. That is to discern what is reality. That's what reason is. You use reason to discern what is reality. Many of them can't do that. They literally have had a bioweapon. And then, of course, to have logic. What does that mean? To test what is reality. So once you discern what is reality, now let's test what is reality. Reason, logic, and then context. What does that mean? To understand in reality. In other words, to put into reality what we're hearing, we're seeing. We can do this with the Bible. You put the Bible in context. You don't take it out of context. So the question is, has this script been written so that millions and millions of people have gotten a bioweapon that will make many of them psychotic? And now we just keep pumping the violence into their heads, even through the films. We'll be right back. Don't go away. We have a big announcement, folks. It's called Bella Melt. In the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. So what it's going to do best is it's going to reduce your sugar cravings or any other cravings you have in your body. It's going to suppress that appetite. But where Melissa got the most benefit, I think, over the last week was the L-carnitine. The L-carnitine tells your mitochondria, this is where you make, we've talked about it before, this is where you produce energy in your cells. It actually tells those mitochondria to burn fat for fuel.
MelissaHouseBG.com just now introducing for the first time Bella Melt with GLP-1 Fast Action. All right, welcome back. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com, worldviewtube.com. And as always, we appreciate you and your support at worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. We should be joined here pretty soon by the congressman. They'll let me know when he's here. But I want to go back to this, what seems to be setting people up for psychosis, for violence. In fact, I could say this has been going on a very, very long time. In fact, I could go back to, let's say, 1962, where they removed prayer. They removed class devotional prayer from America's schools in 1962. 1963, Bible reading. 1968, we had the protection of teaching evolution. 73, we have the right, they say, to abortion, Roe v. Wade. Thankfully, that's been overturned. We'll see where that goes. 1980, the removal of the 10 Commandments from the schoolroom walls. Some states are now putting that back. We'll see how those court cases go. And then in 1987, the court said, no, you cannot teach creation and evolution next to each other and let the students decide. You can only teach one worldview, a naturalistic worldview. There is no divine that said in the beginning, let there be light. There is no divine that created. You're a mistake. Billions and billions of so-called good mutations, and we arrived where we are today. No real meaning or purpose in life. Nihilism. And the studies are showing increasingly, with my friend Mark Mitchell, who was just with us, the lead pollster at Rasmussen, the polling are showing us that many, many young people today are very fearful and they're very anxious. The polls are also showing that many young people are wanting to go to church, particularly after the murder of Charlie Kirk. And they're hoping to find some hope, some peace. I pray they find the Prince of Peace, don't you? But it seems as though this has been going on, I would say, at least since 1962 to demoralize our society. Remember the stages by Yuri Bezmenov, the former KGB officer whose expertise was propaganda. Demoralize, destabilize, chaos. And then the new norm. And the new norm, folks, will be everybody get a biochip so we know who's in town, who's moving about, what they're buying, who can be controlled. They're not obeying. What did Larry Ellison say, the tech bro working with this administration now? We need these cameras everywhere so people will behave themselves. The new norm, technocracy, a technology that is used for dictatorship. Eventually the mark of the beast. So I think this setting up our young people to be violent, to think life has no ultimate meaning or purpose, to have fear, depression, and anxiety. This has been going on for a long time. We just see our culture continuing to just crank out all kinds of perversion in the films and the movies and the books and the CDs, the songs, the music. Violence is being normalized. The dehumanizing of particular people. And you notice it's the Jews and the Christians that keep getting dehumanized. The Jews and the Christians. I wonder why that is. Is that coincidental? Or does Satan hate the Jews because he has a plan to wipe them out so that there cannot be the fulfillment of Bible prophecy and he would win? Does he hate the Christians because we're the salt and light of the earth? I saw a report the other day, the Washington Post. Here it is. Police. Man arrested at D.C. Catholic Church had 200 homemade bombs. 200 homemade explosives. And the Supreme Court justices were expected to attend a mass there at St. Matthew's Cathedral on Sunday. What do you think would have happened if we had multiple members of the U.S. Supreme Court harmed or killed? They already tried, I think, to get Kavanaugh. I don't think that guy got a whole lot of time, did he? You see, we're normalizing cruelty. We're normalizing violence. We're normalizing terrorism. How many of you know that the folks that were involved in Chicago with ramming the ICE facilities, they just got let off. They just got let out. Here is a ABC. I think this is out of Chicago. Listen to this, folks. Tell me this isn't now we don't have the cultural Marxists as judges, as legislators, as attorney generals, and they're normalizing. They're sending the message, it's okay. You won't get into that much trouble. It's okay. Is that not the message they're sending? Listen to this.
New bulletins from the Center for Internet Security and Department of Homeland Security stating ICE agents and facilities have been targeted by an anarchist website in Chicago.
Oh, and there just happens to be a movie that came out September 26th. How many of you are buying this? Or is this the deep state, the CIA, which we know controls a lot of the movies coming out of Hollywood? Go look that up.
The law enforcement threat assessment from the Center for Internet Security says at least 4 Chicago area ICE facilities, including Broadview, have been surveilled with detailed layouts, diagrams, and photos posted to what is described as an anarchist website. Also found on the website, reviewed by the ABC 7i team, photos of ICE agents, including names, faces, and badge numbers.
There has been an increase in the attempt to gather information online and publish it even on websites publicly available.
A separate Department of Homeland Security Joint Intelligence Bulletin from this month advises ICE facilities and personnel face an increased threat from domestic violent extremists, similar to the 2 shootings at ICE facilities in Texas in September and July.
These are law enforcement operations, and these are law enforcement officers that are doing what they were sworn to do.
ABC 7 police affairs consultant Bill Kushner says the enhanced federal action in Chicago brings enhanced risk to immigration operations.
All right, that's right. But then we have these guys in Chicago that were ramming cars, and they were let out. Here is that report.
Judy, the judge in this case basically said that neither Miramar Martinez nor Anthony Reese pose a flight risk, and so she has ordered them freed pending their trial. Now, their cases have been jointed together in the same legal complaint, even though both were driving separate vehicles on the day in question, and according to their friends and family, they do not know each other.
All right, so they're being let out. They were just ramming ICE people, and they just got let out of court. Now, do you think this is not, whether deliberately, at least subconsciously, telling these people it's okay? Nothing bad will really happen to you.
For today, prosecutors described Miramar Martinez and Anthony Reese's actions as extremely dangerous and extremely reckless, saying the two had been following the Border Patrol agent's vehicle for 20 to 30 minutes before the alleged ramming took place Saturday morning, adding that the defendants weren't in the wrong place at the wrong time. The complaint, filed in court, alleges that on October 4th, 3 Border Patrol officers acting as security detail were driving a silver Chevy Tahoe in Oak Lawn when they were aggressively pursued by what is described as a convoy of civilian vehicles. That convoy, alleges the complaint, was attempting to box them in when they were struck, first by Martinez, then moments later by Ruiz, near 39th Place in Kedzie. Martinez was shot 5 times by agents, then arrested at a repair shop a mile away, while Reese was arrested at a gas station nearby. The criminal complaint, including photos of the CBP-driven vehicle, along with photos of both Martinez's and Reese's vehicles, with damage they say is consistent with the ramming. Now, in court today, defense attorneys for both Martinez and Reese disputed the government's version of events. But since this was a detention hearing, they mostly limited themselves to arguing why their respective clients should be released, with Martinez's attorney saying that she is still recovering from the injuries from those 5 gunshot wounds and needs immediate medical attention. Both are scheduled to be back in court at a later date.
So you can do that and you just get let out. Now, do you think this is normalizing this? Remember me giving you those steps too? For persecution, for violence. You normalize these things. You characterize, normalize, terrorize, normalize the terrorizing. And whether it's against legitimate law enforcement or against Christians and Jews, you normalize the terrorizing. It just happened to be a film comes out a few weeks ago, September 26, all about using explosives and Marxist revolutionary tactics to free illegal immigrants. Oh, just coincidence, folks. Just coincidence. What do you think we're prone to seeing? What do you think we are prone to seeing? And now we have the guy that tried to, I guess, kill Judge Kavanaugh, Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh. Listen to this from Ted Cruz.
Just this week, a left-wing Biden-appointed judge sentenced this attempted murderer, this attempted assassin, to just 8 years. The Department of Justice asked for 30 years.
That's right.
And that judge downward departed by 22 years. Why? Because this left-wing judge said that the attempted murderer was transgender. And because he identifies as transgender, apparently it's okay to try to kill a Supreme Court justice if your politics are sufficiently woke. Now, I know you have...
There you go. Now, they can say that's her justification, but I think the real justification is they have no problem with it. They want folks to know that you're fighting a greater cause. Be willing to make sacrifice. We won't forget you. We'll do our best to make sure you get a lenient sentence, but even a moderate sentence won't be forgotten. Where do you think this is all headed, folks? Most Americans are not seeing these pieces of the puzzle that I'm sharing with you today. The news cycle is running at them so fast that if they're paying attention, and many are not, they've long since abandoned the news. But even if they are watching, they don't connect all these dots. They do not understand what I have laid out to you today, like a court case, evidence that there is a systematic grooming of people to be violent, to be involved in murder, to be involved in terrorism, and to send the message that it is morally acceptable and really not that big of a deal, and the punishment for it will be very slight. In most cases, a little moderate in some, but it's for the cause. Do you really think this is just going to stop one day, folks? Or will this escalation continue? We'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. All right, looks like the congressman will be with us here in just one moment. Talk about the shutdown and where things are going. But while we have this signaling that violence is okay, terrorism is okay, attempted assassination is apparently okay by, no, not 30 years, 8 years. And then let's see what they get for time, well, good behavior, etc. Well, all that's going on, with the borders have been wide open for who knows who is here. And the Islamists, well, they're in New York celebrating October 7th and saying they didn't do enough and they want to do more. This is in New York, as this Islamist wears his keffiyeh, the terrorist neckerchief, if you will, around his neck. That's the neckerchief we all saw being worn so often by the well-known leader of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Listen to what this guy was chanting yesterday with the crowd in New York.
We did not act enough.
We did not act enough. Did you catch that?
We did not act enough. We did not act enough. We did not act enough. Repeat after me. We did not act enough. We did not act enough. If we acted enough. If we acted enough. The headline behind me would read. The headline behind me would read. Gaza has been liberated. So our work is not done. We must show up. We must show up. Stronger than we did the first October 7th. Louder than we did the first October 7th. Make it clear that we are not going anywhere.
Wow. They didn't do enough on October 7th. Notice he said the first October 7th. That's in New York. So notice what I've been laying out to you now for 33 minutes. A film came out September 22nd by Leonardo DiCaprio that is glamorizing communist revolutionaries using bombs and explosives to free illegal immigrants, to attack ICE officers, claiming that their captors are white Christians. We have a judge in Chicago that has let out 2 people out of jail on their own recognizance who were stalking ICE agents, following them around, and then ramming their vehicle. We have a crazy left-wing judge that, instead of giving 30 years to a man who apparently was on his way to try to assassinate a Supreme Court justice, gave him 8 years because he's LGBTQ. No, I don't think that's why. That is a wink, wink. We condone violence. These people are now not seen as, again, terrorists. They're seen as freedom fighters. They're seen as liberators. They're seen as tearing down the system, burning down the system. And this film hits the 26th of September in the theaters just right now. These judges making these rulings and decisions. Islamists now in the streets saying we didn't do enough for the first October 7th. We have a DNI bulletin warning first responders. We have a SIMS card server and multiple SIM cards themselves found in New York, which many experts say is one of many that are around the country, that can send out millions of fake texts, target people, disrupt communications, disrupt 911. What's coming? Can we not see from everything that I've shown you now in the last 34 minutes that people are being encouraged? They're being incited. You have an AG that is talking about he's running in Virginia, and he's being defended by, well, as we saw today, Senator Tim Kaine. People being dehumanized, targeted, normalizing of targeting people, the normalizing of violence. And we think this is just going to go away? No. Don't forget what Carlos the Jackal, the well-known Islamic terrorist, said America cannot be brought down unless there is a coalition between Marxism and Islam. That's what we're seeing. It's in the cultural stream. It's in the movies. It's in this movie I just mentioned. And who is the target? It says the bad guys of the film are the capitalists and the Christians because they are the source of all suffering and oppression, just as the Frankfurt School said in 1933 when they came here to America to penetrate education and media. And boy, have they done it. And now we have people being randomly killed, their throats slit because they're white. And where are America's pastors, can I ask? I'll tell this story, then we're going to go to Congressman. I had a gentleman come up to me at my conference this weekend, my National Worldview Weekend. He said, can I have a few minutes with you? I said, yes, sir. He's an older gentleman. He said, I told my pastor I was coming to your conference. He got very angry, red in the face and very angry when I mentioned your name. And that he was coming to our Worldview Weekend. Turns out, his pastor is a big defender of the Gospel Coalition, which pushes, well, radical Marxism. They told people, pastors, tell your congregation to vote for Hillary. They push reparations, basic income, minimum basic income. They're a Marxist organization, posing as Christian. That's why I wrote Marxianity. I said, here, give him my book, Marxianity. And I handed him my book, say it's a gift from me. And if he can find one thing in that book that's not true, challenge him to call in when the phones are opened live. I don't think he will, because none of them ever do. But his pastor got red in the face and he said, angry when I mentioned your name and I was coming to your conference. God help America. Joining me now is Congressman Glenn Grothman. Congressman, I know you were in a meeting and we are happy that you're able to join us here on the VCY America Radio Network. So we're blasting on 74 Christian stations, Worldview Tube, and of course WROS also down in Jacksonville, Florida. But I know we're going right over the state that you come from and the district you represent. And I know many of our audience members are very familiar with you. I know you just joined us, but you heard a little bit overview of what I've been laying out the last few minutes. You want to comment on what you just heard?
Well, it is amazing the degree to which people are being educated to really hate America and be on the side of overthrowing America. And I think a lot of your listeners will find that as shocking, but your younger listeners will not find it as shocking because they have largely gotten their ideas from social media, ideas from the popular culture, as well as our education system, be it K-12 or the university system. And this is really the biggest danger in America. We have a lot of bad politicians out there, but bad politicians only get out there because that's who elected them. And we are seeing this growing number of people, as we saw in 1920 and the George Floyd riots. We are seeing a large number of people, some of them perhaps paid to do it, but trying to create a lot of disruption in society, create an environment in which America is weaker, create an environment in which a given number of citizens just throw in the towel and vote for socialistic type people. That is the danger we have going out there. And it's a very real danger. You look at who we have running for mayor of New York, who's the favorite right now, right? You could say it's New York City, but wherever it is, it's scary. It's still the largest city in the country. You look at the governor of California, the craziness going on there. And in most states, there are areas, I'm from Wisconsin, city of Milwaukee, city of Madison, where a majority of people would be very comfortable voting for an entirely different form of government.
We're in big trouble. Tell me what's going on with the shutdown. What are we on, day 7 now of the shutdown?
Right. I think this is a political shutdown. You know, normally this barely makes the news. We do what we call a continuing resolution. The year's budget is not finished on time. It never is. And we just say, well, the negotiation's going on. Let's just keep funding the government at last year's level. This year, we're even funding the government at last year's level plus inflation, which is kind of irresponsible because we're so in debt. But the Democrats have decided not to help us out. In the Senate, you need 60 votes to pass this, so you need a coalition of Republicans and Democrats. And the Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer, a senator from New York, are saying, no, we aren't going to keep the government open until the negotiations are apparently finished. Well, the negotiations, I got news for them, negotiations might not wrap up till Christmas. We don't want to have the government closed between now and Christmas. It is inconveniencing a lot of people, but that's why we have a shutdown. It's something that has to be, keeping the government open is something that both parties have to agree on. And right now the Democrat Party is saying, no, we're not going to keep the government open. And
they want to give health care to illegals? Did I read that correctly?
Right. And, you know, now the Democrats say, well, a few of them will admit it, but some are denying it. But let's go back to 2020, in which we had a presidential election going on. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, largely all the major Democrat figures proudly on national television raised their hand and said they're for free health care for illegals. And in their proposal, they are for free health care for illegals. That's what's going to happen as these people come to hospitals, emergency rooms, that sort of thing. And it's not surprising because the Democrats do want to get as many new immigrants in the country as possible. They want to change America. And one way to do that is get in a lot of new people. And that's why Joe Biden got in, 10 million people illegally when he was president. If Kamala Harris would have got reelected, there's no doubt in my mind she would have brought in another 10 or 15 million people to permanently change America. But the reason they want free health care for illegal immigrants, I believe, is it's a carrot to get more people here. And when I was down on the border, I can tell you, people come across for dialysis. Why do they come from Mexico or from other countries? Why do they come up here? Because it's free. That's why they do it. And they'd love to have just everything be free. One more magnet to get more people in this country who are not used to our Constitution and the limitations on government that Americans are used to and support.
Tell me, we got a break coming. The computer will take it away, so I'll have to jump back in here. We'll come back and discuss it on the other side. How concerned are you as we see Bill Gates sitting in the White House and Mark Zuckerberg sitting in the White House and some of these guys that were trying to, did shadow ban us and block us and deplatform us. And now they're sitting in the White House. I know I saw from social media, this really upset a lot of conservatives and Christians that feel like these guys should be being prosecuted for what they did, not getting a place at the table inside the White House. What are your constituents saying?
And serial listeners know, and not enough of my constituents know, some constituents know, you have these people who are very wealthy, who believe because of their wealth, they are really entitled to run the country. And they don't even like the United States as a country. They like a one world government. I mean, right now, it's not like our government is working like clockwork, but at least we still have the state and local governments doing a lot. Even in Congress, I'm very accessible, easily to get a hold of. They would rather have a body like the United Nations, where it would be impossible to get a hold of anybody, where the United States government would be bound by some proclamation.
Mm-hmm. Hold right there. We'll be right back. The computer's going to take it away. We'll be right back with Congressman Glenn Grothman. Don't go away, folks.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Welcome back, Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Be sure to stay tuned for Crosstalk with Jim Schneider, top of the hour on the VCY America Radio Network on over 100 outlets nationwide, vcy.org, V as in Victor, vcy.org. Joining me now is Congressman Glenn Grothman again from the 6th District there in Wisconsin. Congressman, I agree with you, globalism. A lot of these guys really don't care about America and free speech. I'm very concerned on a, just with the flip of a vote, we could see ourselves, as we seem to be, running toward the direction of Europe, where we are prosecuted for speaking about the truth of Islam, sharing the gospel openly. The things I'm seeing people on video being arrested for, very benign statements, very normal statements, very truthful statements about people saying their concerns about Islam or illegal immigration or preaching the gospel, passing out tracts, passing out Bibles, and they're being arrested in Great Britain, in Europe. This is very troubling. I'm very concerned as someone who's on Christian radio and Christian TV and as a Christian, and I'm very concerned, as I know you are, about that. But what about America? How concerned are you, and how much should we be warning people about the need to protect free speech and freedom of religion here?
Very concerned. When you hear politicians talk about hate speech, that's a very dangerous thing to talk about, because in America, we have free speech. You can say anything. You're free to hate anybody, whatever you want to do. But the reason people want to go after hate speech is then they will define certain Christianity ideals as hatred. Or they will say things like people who want reasonable immigration laws as haters. And that would be the end of America, right? If they, let's say they would say that certain prescriptions in the Bible, this is right, this is wrong, this is what is sinful. People will say, well, by saying this is sinful, by quoting the Bible, you are committing hate speech, and we will come down and we will prosecute you. Actually, of course, the Biden administration did propose a organization restricting free speech. There just wasn't enough popular support for it to be passed. But the Democrats are waiting there in the wings right now to say, we are going to sanction you for committing hate speech, which would be disagreeing with the Quran, for example. It would be disagreeing with the LGBT agenda, for example. And I can see a world in which if a few votes, 3 or 4 percentage points goes the other way, within 5 years, we have a country in which it is illegal to disagree with, quite frankly, sinful behavior, sinful speech. So it's something we should be very concerned about. And like I said, the lack of sympathy and even hatred for Christianity in this country among the elite is a real problem. And it's a real problem that we have these trillionaires or one world government types who would like to turn the running of the United States over to things like the World Health Organization or something other. All these groups which we should be out of, they would like to have more power.
Speak to the pastors, or so-called pastors, some of them, of course, are real shepherds and pastors, and we praise God for them. But speak to these guys that think we should have open borders, or that we should have redistribution of wealth, or are into social justice and into a new kind of gospel, that are refusing to mention these issues from the pulpit. Speak to these guys, because this is going to be very frustrating to you, right?
Yeah, you can add DEI to that as well, right? I think you have, sadly, a given number of clergymen who are perhaps bored with Christianity. Maybe they don't accept the Bible as the Word of God, and as the result, they need a paycheck for some reason or other. At some point in their life, they went to seminary, so they got to find a way to feed themselves. They don't want to find another job. They don't want to become a welder or a carpenter. So what are they going to do? Well, they wind up preaching in a church that maybe used to be a Bible-believing church 40 years ago, and we all kind of know who these churches are. But because they are bored, because they don't believe in the Bible, they wind up kind of adapting the platform of the Democrat Party as what they believe is godly. And as the result, largely these type of churches, the number of people in the pews are dropping. But nevertheless, people out of inertia are still going to these churches. And it's really worse than, I think, no church at all. You know, these churches whose gospel or whatever they would call it is really kind of anti-Christian. Mm-hmm. And it's a dangerous thing. And I think it's doubly dangerous because if you want to talk to somebody about Christianity, these people, if you run into them or somebody goes into this church, they think, I am getting the gospel here, but you're not getting the gospel. You're getting something opposite of the gospel, which is really a very dangerous thing for America. Like I said, I think these churches are slowly shrinking.
Yes.
I think people are leaving the pews, but there are still tens of millions of Americans who may be influenced by these type of clergy.
I want to ask you in our remaining moments here real quickly, gold today, I know economics, finance is a big hot button for you too. Gold is up today over $4,000, $4,050. Silver is headed to $50 an ounce. Now we're at an all-time high for gold. We just keep hitting one high after another. Silver's about to get back to its high of $50. It's just about 60 cents away, 59 cents away. The dollar's declining, the value of the dollar. People realize we're going to a new system. Seems we're going from a debt-based system to an asset-based system, tokenizing things on ledgers. How concerned are you about what you're seeing with the dollar and our economy and this massive debt?
Scary, because to a certain extent, our prosperity in America, and we are such a wealthy country, God has given us so much, but to a certain extent, that wealth comes from the fact that the rest of the world respects the dollar and uses it as the world's reserve currency. The more Congress overspends, and right now they're doing a horrible job. I'm a little frustrated, quite frankly, with Republican leadership. They should be cracking the whip a little bit more on the Congress to spend more. And part of it is the people's fault. By the way, I'm sitting here in an office right now in Washington, D.C. It seems as though the majority of people or groups who come through my office want to ask the government for more money, which is, of course, not what our country was built on. But if we continue to go into debt, the value of the dollar is not so great. As you can see, fear that the Congress is just going to go completely nuts. We're going to be so far in debt we can never recover, which is one of the reasons why gold is so high right now.
I want to give you your website real quick before I run out of time. GlennGrothman.com, folks. GlennGrothman.com. Thank you, Congressman. Stay tuned, folks.
This has been
And we're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and Worldview Tube. We just let the VCY stations go because they're on a clock. We're on a clock. Let's bring the congressman back in for another couple minutes where we let him go. We just came off the 74 stations of VCY, but we're still with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, Congressman and Worldview Tube. I want to show his website real quick again, GlennGrothman.com. So, Congressman, how long do you think this shutdown will last? And will the president be able to use it to any advantage, like getting rid of a bunch of people, bloated bureaucracy? Will he be able to do anything with that?
Well, I hope he does. We are way in debt. We are borrowing about 26% of whatever we spend. DOGE identified, I would say, hundreds of thousands of people working for the federal government whose jobs are not necessary. Hopefully, the Trump administration will use this interlude to identify some of these people. They've already given them a lot of opportunities for buyouts, so they wouldn't work for the federal government anymore. But maybe we'll have less people work for the government. I'm very sad for them, but it'll be a necessity if we're going to get our budget under control. So that's something that could could very easily happen over the next couple of weeks. I maybe will look too optimistic. I continue to believe sometime in the next 2 weeks, particularly as our servicemen begin to expect their pay. I don't think we're going to want them to go without the pay, and hopefully that will bring some of the Democrats to the negotiating table and want to go ahead and do what we call a continuing resolution, which we've done so many times in the past already. It's kind of an identical vote to one the Democrats just took a few months ago, and it's something that the Republicans helped out Joe Biden with, who I couldn't stand, but we have kept the government open largely under the Biden presidency. I think exclusively through the Biden presidency, because the Republicans realized it would be irresponsible to shut down the government. But we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to see whether any Democrats are willing to stand up to their leadership and say, no, we don't want the government to shut down.
Tell me, Congressman, we got 4 minutes left here. Tell me what your thoughts on the National Guard. I'm sitting just outside of Memphis, Tennessee. We have the National Guard showing up, we're told, in 4 days. A bunch of federal agents are already here. Our governor has sent in a slew of state troopers. You should see the video footage of the state troopers. I guess they're all staying, a lot of them at one hotel. There had to be at least, I would say, Logan, 50 state trooper cars in the parking lot. Someone filmed them. And so crime is already dropping in Memphis. I'm 30 minutes outside about. And the National Guard will be here in 3 or 4 days. Now we see what's going on in Illinois. And a defiant Illinois governor is warning of a Chirac. Instead of Iraq, Chicago, he's combining Chicago with Iraq to call it a Chirac crisis. My first thought was, well, I don't know about this. The National Guard in our streets. I don't know. We have to be careful setting a precedent. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, wait a minute. National Guard. Isn't their job to guard the nation? And what is going on in these cities? Drug cartels, international drug cartels, the Sinaloa network. China is involved in this. China provides the precursor chemicals for the drug cartels. Well, this is obviously way above the Memphis Police Department. This is a national security problem. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I kind of agree with you. I was glad that they brought out the National Guard in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, was an embarrassment to the country, right? A huge number of murders. Like all big cities, it has nice neighborhoods and neighborhoods that aren't so nice. But even close to the areas that aren't so nice, we hear of stories of staffers who live there being robbed, look out at night, don't walk around too late at night. I'm glad President Trump, after putting up with this stuff for 50 years or so of Washington being a dangerous city, is getting involved so that, we no longer can. It's no longer an embarrassment compared to other capital cities around the world. Years ago, I went to Taiwan. It was incredibly safe. Taipei, even bigger than Los Angeles or Chicago, a big city, safe everywhere. So I'm glad he did it there. On other cities, I'm not as gung-ho, to be honest. I think we have a constitution, and I think law enforcement in cities like Chicago or Milwaukee, for example, is the responsible, the people of Milwaukee. If they can't handle it, and in Wisconsin, we have the state legislature come to the fore, which they've tried to do. But I think we also have to think if 4 years from now we had a President Newsom, would we want him controlling the National Guard, going around cities doing who knows what?
Yeah, well, that was my initial reaction as well. And then I got to thinking about all the international drug gangs here. And I kind of like, well, isn't that their job to help secure us? But you're right. I guess if we all had a commitment to law and order in the Constitution, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But we have to be worried about the precedent being set for the next guy. Closing comment?
Right. I agree. You have to look out for the precedent. Right now, our big cities, the people who vote for them it's something to be scary for everybody because they influence our national elections. They're leftists.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated